That one time that you got.
I believe we can open our meeting and proceed on time. Yeah. One more to sit down.
Jesus.
Yeah, really. There's plenty of donuts, everybody take.
Okay. Now call the meeting to order. And our first item on here is we're gonna have a presentation by Madison, how do you say your? Prisco. On Capital Region housing trends and missing middle versus single class family. Take it away.
Yeah, wait.
Did you email me a link?
No.
Bring up Canada?
Yes. Jacqueline, we do, introductions first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
It's easy.
So we can go around and everybody introduce themselves and what county you're from and any other information you want to add.
Schenectady County, email line, Jane.
Mark Castiglione, Executive Director.
Larry Schillinger, Albany County.
Charlie Davidson, Schenectady County.
Ray Bruner, Saratoga County.
Joe Grasso, Secretary County Supervisor.
Jasmine Higgins, Albany County.
Will Bruce, Albany County. Gender, Rensselaer County.
Judy Bressler, Rensselaer County.
Michael Stanton, Rensselaer County.
Amy Winstrup, CDRPC.
Kristen Swinton, Albany County.
David Openkamp, Schenectady County.
Jacqueline Stallone and Rensselaer County.
Yes.
Online, we have Jason Kemper participating remotely.
Ready to rock and roll?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Prisco. I'm the GIS and data analyst for CDRPC, and today I'll be presenting on the most recent report that I've written, taking a look at missing middle and single-family home sales, as well as unit sales in the capital region, and then we'll take a look at invest activity as well. So just to start out, the data source that we're using here is different from our previous housing reports that relied heavily on the census. This data comes from New York State's property transfer data, and that's essentially when you're buying a house, you fill out a bunch of paperwork. This data is then compiled and then freely and publicly accessible by New York State. So it has information on property class codes, who is buying the property, who's selling the property, and then the sale price of that property. And also I wanted just to define missing middle before we jump in. This encompasses a range of multi-unit housing types like duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, cottage courts, and AUDs that are comparable in size with our single-family homes. And then the middle refers to this type of housing being between single family and then between single family and our large-scale apartment complexes. It's attractive due to their affordability and walkability, and missing middle is a potential solution to the housing shortage and crisis that we're seeing. High level overview here in the region for 2024 for single family home sales. You can see Albany County accounts for the largest share of units sold. We have about 6,500 units of single family housing sold in the region. The median sale price being around $320,000. And then when we look at the 2024 number of units sold compared to that of 2023, we see a very slight, insignificant decrease. Same type of chart, but now we're just looking at our missing middle home sales. Albany County accounts for a larger share of that pie. However, we do have not as many number of units sold. So 6,500 for a single family and around 1,300 missing middle homes number of units sold. The median sale price for missing middle housing is around $228,000, which is $100,000 less than our single family homes. So quite a bit cheaper. This chart is showing our number of missing middle and single family homes purchased in the capital region over time. This report, this presentation takes a look at 2019 data through 2024. You can see we have that bump in 2021 as interest rates were lower at that point. We were kind of at that housing bubble post-COVID. You can see single family housing has in recent years kind of settled at a rate that's lower than pre-COVID levels, where missing middle number of units sold over time has remained kind of stable. This chart now shows the median sale price for both missing middle and single family homes in the capital region over that same time period. These values are adjusted for inflation. And you can see we see a larger percent increase between 2023 and 2024 for our missing middle home sales of around 11% compared to 3.6% for single family homes between the same period. Jumping now to take a brief look at investor activity in the capital region. Since we know, or since this data has information on who's buying the homes, I was able to query or filter for LLCs, corporations, or INC, people who are buying these homes, and that typically will note that it's not for owner occupancy, it's typically for an investment property. And this chart here is showing the number of units sold to investors between 2019 and 2024. You can see in the earlier years, there's more investor activity in single family homes than missing middle homes, and then in 2021 we kind of see that flip, and then it's remained the trend from that point forward that there's interest in missing middle homes over single family homes. Around 10% of regional home sales in 2024 in the capital region were made to investors, and on average, investor purchases averaged $120,000 below owner-occupied sales, so they're buying cheap. This chart shows investor activity, but just those out-of-state investors. Kind of a fun chart, but similar trends that single-family homes purchased by investors are really popular in those earlier years, and you kind of see that trend reverse in our more current years that we have data for. In 2024, 70 homes were purchased. Missing middle homes were purchased by investors versus 32 homes purchased by investors for single-family. A couple of interesting facts here. Investor purchases in single-family homes had the largest decrease in Saratoga County between 2019 and 2024, and 60% of out-of-state missing middle investment was made in Albany County. Some key takeaways from this report are that the region doesn't really have that many investors. You could see that out of what we have 6,500 sales of single-family houses in 2024, only 32 of those were for investors. And they are buying significantly cheaper properties, hoping to get higher appreciation out of those homes. In our report, we break this down even further by county and in some cases at the municipal level. So I highly recommend taking a look at that report and checking out investor activity in your communities and at the local level.
Thanks, Maddie.
Of course.
So the reason why we're taking a look at housing, one is we've been asked by folks down the Hall Transportation Council, they are now being required to take a look at the connection between housing and transportation. They've always done it, but now they're being specifically directed to do more of it. And then the other question we wanted to answer is, is this housing type really a potential solution to housing affordability? Well, the market is saying that for investors, and now these are just out-of-state investors, but 10% of overall home sales in the capital district are for investors. And we see that the market, in terms of investors, is saying, yes, this is a good solution for profitability because there's a lower entry point in terms of that investors in investment. And there's also a better return on investment because they're appreciating at a faster rate than single family homes. And by and large, because of these advantages that investors are seeing, it also translates into advantages in terms of housing affordability, because the same advantages that an investor would get, a home buyer would get. And this is while we're doing a lot on housing, but a companion analysis that we're doing, which is underway, is talking with communities in the that they're experiencing the highest level of residential housing growth and apartment growth in the capital district. So we're talking to 5 communities in each county. And one of the trends that we've identified through these conversations about what has changed in the last 5-10 years is that most of the development proposals that are being put in front of planning boards, even if they include single-family homes, they also now have a missing middle housing component, whether that's townhomes, small apartment buildings, or condominiums. Because that's makes it more profitable for the developer, because the entry point for constructing a single family home is so expensive now. And two, there is a market demand for this kind of housing. And I wouldn't say it's universal, but most of the communities that we've talked to that have had this kind of development, single family, have been experiencing this mix now of single family residential and multifamily in the middle housing being constructed. So we'll continue to look at this. Like I said, Maddie and myself are working on another report for housing, taking a look, on how and where growth is happening in the capital district, and also where large apartment buildings are being constructed in the capital district, 411 categories. Again, this work will inform the folks down the hall as they update their travel demand model. And so I know Maddie wants this topic, but we'll continue to present on it as we provide more research to you all. But great job, Maddie.
Question, the investor, are we able to ascertain whether the business model for the investors are to renovate and flip or to renovate and rent?
This data does not show that, however, it does show the address of that location, so it would be interesting to take a quick look at those properties over time to see what they're.
You'd be able to see if the ownership changed.
Because I guess what I'm trying to test is whether or not although there's not a lot of investors, I get it, but whether the investor is impeding opportunity for home ownership from first time home purchasers versus renovating and then making those homes available.
Yeah, what I see is that these investors are flipping a lot of these homes. And yes, are flipping, at least in my city. And with that also comes that they're artificially inflating the tax rate in our city by doing that. And it's bad. I think it's really bad because it increases your taxes. It increases your property taxes. So, and what they're doing is really outbidding the people who want to buy first home. They can put down an investor can put down a larger deposit than maybe somebody just trying to buy their first home. And they're freezing them out of the market is what they're really doing and outbidding them. And just on the other side of that, when it comes to apartments and stuff like that, anybody that's doing new building, and I see this plans that the development we're doing, is that they're only doing 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and a lot of these people are looking for, they're being encouraged to get a bigger family, and there's no place to put them. And a lot of these apartments are being cut up. The investor comes in, cuts it up, so it makes it look like they get 3 apartments out of a two apartment house or something like that, and they're just taking the market away from the families themselves. So, thank you for that.
Is there any data on housing units that are being converted to short-term rentals?
So we can access data about short-term rentals, which I'm trying to get approval to buy, so that there's a number of different organizations that provide this data. And it would be interesting to see that. So when we get that data, we'll be able to show that. Because there is a sort of anecdotal feeling among some areas that there's a significant amount of property that's being taken out of the market and by converting it to short-term rentals. I live on a residential street in Albany, and I have a short-term rental on my block. You'd never know. It looks just like a regular house.
Short-term meaning
Airbnb.
Airbnb, that's what I'm wondering.
I'll just throw in the other thing that but I kind of see it population that the missing middle office satisfies that, outside from a single family home, get into a condo situation that they don't have maintenance for. that opens up a single family home for investors or somebody else. That's part of, I think, this can be satisfying that.
And we do see pockets of housing, you know, in Clifton Park and, you know, really all around the region where you have the majority of householders, 65 plus, no children, living in a single family detached dwelling. You know, there is, I'm not sure if we're approaching a tipping point, but there's going to be a point in time in the near future where a lot of that single family housing these people have been living in, raised a family in, is gonna start to turn over.
Is it possible to see, clergy investment? There's a recent, New York State bill that allows for clergy to redevelop property into townhomes, things like that. Is it possible to see that in state aside?
If the entity is like listed as that organization or corporation, then yes.
All right, thanks again, Maddie.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Yeah, opens up a whole
Yeah.
universe.
Should have a whole discussion.
Indoor box,
But,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, me
This
too.
is gonna
Me
be
too.
on the
Thinking all this.
Yes, we're ready.
Thank you.
Liz have mine?
Yep, it's on.
This is. Thank you. Good job.
Yes, thank you very much. So next item on our agenda is we have a proclamation honoring Bill Bruce for 20 years of service. We,
Oh, right, Bill.
yes, we,
20 years ago.
Did I take the thing with Mark?
Yeah, no, Jack,
yes,
I take the picture.
you take.
Yeah, you have to go, you have to make the presentation.
well, I voted no.
Hold that down here, don't we?
Just mean those stepping away or it's just a mouse?
No, just come on. Well, you know what, my name card is not here, I don't know if they're trying to tell me something.
We never let you go. You get the flat, but then you know.
It's so weird. That's very bad.
Back.
Right here. All right, cheese. Cheese. All right, thanks, Bill.
Congratulations, Bill.
Working effort.
Issues haven't changed much. It's about housing, data and mapping, environment, transportation, traffic. There's been a lot of people that have come and gone. Staff and so just to that.
What happened? It is.
We're not getting it framed.
Yeah.
Gets his printed in gold. Okay, so now we're up to the point where we need to, approve the minutes for the April 16th meeting. Does anybody have any?
Board action on.
Yeah, we should probably adopt.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
proclamation. That's okay.
Second. Now we're really honoring.
So, okay, did we, vote on this?
Motion made in second. Okay.
And now we can see if anybody has any questions about the minutes from April 16th. No questions? Anybody want to? Okay, everybody in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
One vote.
Okay, we still have time for questions. Okay, we have the, financial statement through May 31st, which Mark can.
Sure. Revenues are at 36% of budget, expenses are at 38%, par is 41. We're approaching the close of Q2, so, you know, revenues will true up to par once we file for our reimbursements from our various granting agencies. Cash in the bank, just under $273,000. We have a total receivable just under $400,000. And we're in a pretty good cash position, so. And this time, since there was a question last time on the balance sheet, I've just highlighted how I get the total of the cash on hand in the bank, because we have other restricted accounts that you see there.
Second.
Everybody approve?
Aye.
So now we have a resolution to open a credit card account at the Pioneer Commercial Bank. This is, I think, part of the process of moving from ZEBQ onto the Pioneer, so.
Right. So I wish we had this on the agenda last time, but sometimes these things have to be incremental. So we opened an account and now we're filing for credit cards. So it just includes this resolution that we have to adopt. The signatories are Jasmine and Jackie as the chair to agree to open up the accounts. We, in terms of our credit card policy, my credit limit is typically set at 10,000, right? Or 5,000.
Minus 5, Todd and Kate are
25. So that's, will be the same policy. All expenses, regardless of who charges them, have to be approved by me, unless they're incidental office equipment or supplies that Amy purchases. But I don't anticipate any issues with this. We always pay off our credit card bill at the end of the month.
And it'll be audited on a, balanced on a monthly basis.
Yeah, so part of our process with the credit cards, and I'm not quite sure how the timing is going to be. So the credit card expenses are articulated on the abstract as a separate line. So each purchase is charged to its appropriate QuickBooks account line, but all those are shown on as a credit card transaction on the abstract, which the treasurer approves.
I'm assuming we got a credit card when we were under ZEBQ, right?
Yep.
So-
This is a separate line of credit, everyone's individual authorizations are for one line of credit.
Yeah, or it's T's line of credit.
And if there's cash back or something. I just asked, I know that New York State, they had a JP Morgan card that signed up for.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the incentives are. Honestly, I did not look at the incentives. This is the credit card that our bank offers, so. But that's a good thing to take a look at.
Sure, 3-year fine tickets.
Just to do that, New York State. You have already negotiated that states.
Okay.
This is fine if you wanna do that.
Well, no, that's a good, always looking to save more money and take the staff to Jamaica.
Well, that's why he changed it to quarterly.
Check out the movie.
I see a lot of new jewelry, by the way.
Rather than ain't going to Jamaica.
I can make a motion if you choose to go to different approach, just next time around, happy to do that.
I'll second that motion.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So now we have a resolution designating the authorized official, the purposes of the NVRC program and improving the draft MOU. And that basically, again, is just to authorize Mark to sign these documents, so he can give you further information on that if you have questions.
Yeah, only the federal government would come up with a term, designate the resolution, designate the authorized official for the purposes of NBRC. But the good news is that we have, I think, now established a institutional relationship with the Northern Border Regional Commission, similar to our institutional relationship with the Economic Development Administration, in that they'll be paying us money to help cultivate projects and grant applications in our region. So the good news is that the Northern Border Regional Commission has already allocated these funds to the New York State Department of State. So regardless of what's happening at the federal level, the money is in hand at least for 2 federal fiscal years for us. And that's a good thing. So instead of being limited to having to wait until grant applications are awarded, we can now be paid for sort of this work. It's also a hedge against some federal unknowns out there. Yes. Oh, Can you hear us now, Jason?
Just barely, Mark, like, that was a little better if you're right. Is the mic in the computer or is it at the owl in the center of the room?
Be at the owl.
Can't hear that.
All right.
Is James on? Can James hear okay?
James,
Yeah,
can you hear?
I just jumped on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you hear you loud and clear. How's our sound?
Sounds fine. Sorry, I'm late. Did I miss anything?
No.
We didn't even miss you.
Okay, I could hear that now, Mark. That's really odd. I see Gary laughing.
That sounds like we must be having some technical difficulties.
All right. Well, it's good to
I
know
can hear
we-
that fine now, Mark. That something right there was way better.
All right, whatever the mojo
Thank you.
was. All right, so we have this money in hand.
Thank you.
Good for a couple fiscal years. This is also a hedge against whatever is happening at the federal level, because we know we have this money. As is gonna be covered in the next memo. Both the EDA and the Northern Border Regional Commission have been zeroed out in the proposed budget bill. Now it's in the Senate, so the Senate has to do their negotiations. So we'll see how that happens, but if those programs were to be eliminated, we still have enough money to support our economic development efforts until we pivot to another solution for those programs. But this is a good thing. The action is just to authorize me as the authorized official to be able to negotiate the final MOU between the Northern Border Regional Commission, CDRPC, and the Department of State. One thing in the MOU is a provision that says we can provide grant writing services to communities with a population of 5,000 or less. Originally, they proposed 2,500. I took a look at our region and established that around 5,000 is our kind of middle number. But that'll be a new service that we'll be able to provide for those smaller communities. Okay. Any questions?
Well, that 5,000 number though does limit the people that can access this service a little more than we would like, I think.
Well, we can still provide technical assistance services broadly. What they really wanted to encourage are direct assistance with the smaller communities that have less capacity. We were all regional planning directors across the state were saying, well, communities that have populations above 5,000 still have capacity issues. You know, it's not, the population doesn't necessarily determine that. So, you know, these agreements may evolve and change over time, but we'll see how the rollout of the program goes in year one. The MOU is gonna be backdated to June 1st. So as soon as, you know, this board approves it, I approve the final MOU and establish the budget, we'll be able to charge against this program.
So this is their language with the 5,000?
Yep.
You're gonna put communities under 5,000 population at the discretion of the executive director, if it's 5,000 in town.
I was surprised at how adamant they were to keep it where it was, the way it was.
Well, I make a motion to accept.
Second.
We had to vote on next big one.
Yep, approve the corporate
Okay.
resolution.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passed. So now we have the federal funding update.
Right, so, since we met last, there has been some movement. The House did pass a budget bill, and I just wanted to update on some new information. So again, we get about 27% of our funding, I'm sorry, 19% of our funding through direct federal and about 27 through indirect federal. While we did just execute a 4-year contract with the EDA, as I mentioned, was slated to be eliminated. But, you know, it enjoys generous bipartisan support historically because it supports economic development projects. Our grant with the Environmental Protection Agency, that was paused back in March, but it was unpaused, and we have not noticed anything weird happening with the funds at this point. There has been a word that's been bubbling up in conversation in the news media called rescission. And that is still something that could be in play related to existing and awarded federal funding, which could be which could be the EPA. But again, we have invested in the near-term actions of completing the comprehensive climate action plan, and the out-year programs and projects are really much up to our discretion of how we would choose to implement that plan of action. In our last memo, I did not include the $110,000 from the Northern Water Regional Commission. It's in this memo because we have the MOU in front of us. And obviously, even if the Northern Water Regional Commission is eliminated, we still have a couple of years of this funding because it's already been allocated to the Department of State. Indirect federal pass-through. There may be some significant impact to, well, the budget for the US DOT has been lowered. And money allocated in the budget for planning funds has also been lowered. Let's see, the administration has not proposed eliminating PL funds. That's where we get our money from the folks down the hall outright, but has taken steps to pause or delay disbursements and new obligations at its discretion, which creates some uncertainty in what the folks down the hall can do for budgeting. And they have required things that they have to spend their money for. They don't necessarily need to spend money on CDRPC to do our studies on housing or anything. So there is some uncertainty there with that funding source as well. 604B, our money for our Clean Water Act. The administration proposes a $2.46 billion cut to the clean air and drinking water state revolving loan funds. That's 89% cut of the 2025 funding level. Our money for 604B work is derived from 1% of the clean water state revolving loan fund allotment. So that 89% cut could drastically impact the state's ability to continue to fund our work in clean water planning. That being said, the state has essentially money in hand from the EPA to fund several years of our water quality planning work, I believe through our current contract term. And as you may remember, we just signed a new contract that takes us out, I believe, to 2029. Does that sound right, Amy?
I think so.
It's a 4-year engagement. Okay. No impact on the state broadband planning, foreign trade zone. I just included additional information about foreign trade zones and related to tariffs. Basically, it has increased interest from companies exploring foreign trade zone as an option to be able to avoid paying tariffs on things that they import, change, and then export out of the US market, or delay paying a tariff in the US market. There's a variety of incentives for that. So actually, our foreign trade zone program has become more popular due to those policies. Any questions?
It's fine. So our next item is the proposed preliminary big beautiful budget. And I hope everybody's had a chance to look at that.
So the purpose of adopting the preliminary budget each year is that we can make our request for 2026 funding to the counties. The A&F committee has reviewed my budget proposal and has approved it as presented here. One of the main takeaways from this budget proposal is that we increase the request to the counties in aggregate by another 3% a year. That's just around the pace of inflation, and the A&F committee supports that, continuing to increase the request to keep so that we're not losing money to inflation each year. So the new request would increase would increase the funds from 229,000 to 235,000 each year. And you can see the increased allocation for each county's request. Albany County's request would increase by about 2,500, Rensselaer County is 1,200, Saratoga County is 1,900, and Schenectady County 1,300. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Hearing none, we'll move on to some of the other items. Again, the main purpose of this budget is just to make the county budget request. This budget does not I did do an accurate job, about what we know now, but it includes my assumptions that the EDA funds will continue, that our federal funding and federal grants will continue. It's basically the status quo budget that adds in the additional money for the Northern Border Regional Commission work. I'll just go through this. Contractual services, for 2026, 9 school enrollment projections. Foreign trade zone, anticipates the status quo. Currently, we have 3 users in the foreign trade zone. Curia, GE Vernova, and Jupiter Bot, thank you. Which is a supplier to GE Vernova. NYSERDA is basically status quo. Climate Smart is also status quo. We just executed a new grant for a 3-year term. The CSO program is basically status quo. EDA program reflects status quo. 604B program reflects the status quo. UPWP program reflects status quo. And the Northern Border Regional Commission is new money that's added into our budget. It reflects the full $110,000, even though our calendar year budget doesn't exactly align with the federal fiscal year budget, but we anticipate spend is going to be over that time. Salaries, it reflects a full-time professional staff of 10. That's a big caveat because I'm not going to bring on a new hire to work on this Northern Border Regional Commission stuff until we know what the outcome of the federal budget is going to be, or the future of those programs is going to be. But this budget reflects a staff of 10, bringing somebody new on. Workshops, basically the status quo on expenses from last year. Consultant services line, supports our capital read indicators site, 2026 or 2025 audit legal counsel, and technical support services related to some of our EPA work. Computer supplies and software is basically status quo. Rent items slightly increased due to increased energy costs. Travel is status quo. Telephone and internet, basically status quo. Workers' comp, and disability increases, in our premiums are reflected in this year's budget. The workers' comp and disability insurance has been increasing more than usual. Unemployment insurance, it's basically status quo, but they're still not artificially high, but they've been higher since post-pandemic, since the state insurance fund has to recoup all the money it spent during that time period. And health insurance costs are based on a 5% increase to our actual 2024 NISHIP rates. Now, our 2023 to 2024, we actually saw a decrease in our NISHIP rates, but I'm taking a conservative approach here and anticipating a 5% increase. And the increase also is inclusive of a family plan for the potential new hire that would be coming on, which is the highest, most expensive plan that we would offer employees. So on the whole, I'm just presenting a balanced budget here. Our unreserved fund balance at the end of 24 was $752,800. Any questions on the proposed budget?
I just have one on that new position. You haven't put any feelers out for that or anything at all. Nothing started on it.
Nope.
So when it begins, it'll take the time frame of the normal process. Okay.
Right. And so once this board adopts this, we send the budget request letters to the county along with our printed annual report. The printed annual report goes along with that letter to the executives or the county manager's offices. At the same time, we do send letters now to all of the county legislators or board of supervisors, representatives in the counties. Just to make sure that we're top of mind when they start putting together the budget.
Mark, 2 things. So on the county allocations, we talk about the updates to the 2020 census, but everybody just seems to be going straight at the 3%. Exactly. I would have thought that would have been skewed if it was updated based on a different population or percentage of the pie.
So we update the percentage of the pie once every 10 years based on the decennial census. I believe that's written into our.
Yeah, but it was just done this year, right?
It was done in 2022. I believe.
Oh, okay.
Or I mean,
So
I
we're
can't,
so we're just notifying them that that's our policy, not that.
Right.
What's reflected.
right.
Okay, I saw I was confused. Okay. And then, on the health insurance, this is the time of the year where they come out with the letters notifying us of the projected increases that they're going after.
Little bit later,
What?
little bit later than you.
Yeah, I just got two this past week.
Okay,
One was, I think, 14 and the other was like 22% or something.
really?
Have we gotten ones for our policy?
I haven't seen any
Okay.
coming yet.
Yeah, they typically
So
issue the
It's
rates.
gotta be.
They issue the
Just
rates
that.
closer like to September, October hours.
Yeah,
That I get that I start getting letters like your rates are gonna be available.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why, I just got two.
No,
I just
sure.
talked yesterday, so anyway, so that 5% is. It's an estimate, but it may be very low based on what we see this year, so.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And
Well,
are
if there's a
those
change, if
plans,
there's a big change from 5%, can we just talk about it, at the.
yeah, when we put together the real deal budget.
Yeah, the finance committee.
Yeah. Are your insurance plans through NISHIP?
No,
Are they small group plans through?
let's see, the HB and.
I should this a little later.
Well, we will check on that and monitor those costs closely.
Great.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve this.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And now we get to the annual report.
Sure.
Which I'm really impressed with. I think this is an excellent job. It's got lots of nice color and it's well organized. I was really impressed.
And it includes pictures of people.
Yeah.
I always said to remind my staff, if they're out in the field, take pictures with people for the annual report. So we've talked about all the stuff that we've done throughout the year that's included in the annual report. We're trying to put our best foot forward here and answer the question, what have you done for me lately? When we ask for the counties to give us money, particularly more money than we asked for last year. I'd like to thank Fernanda, our new intern. This was literally her first assignment. She started her first day. She had a 2-week turnaround time and meet the deadline.
Yes.
And thank you for Lauren and Maddie for showing her the ropes and giving her all the tools that she needs to generate this successful report. You may know that Fernanda has a design background, which she certainly leveraged in putting this together, so. And basically, I think we improve on this report every year a little bit. And what it really does is highlight the incredible work that all the staff here are doing with the resources that we have. So I just want to thank the staff for all the awesome work they're doing. And it's truly an honor to work with them every day, work with creative people, work with people of passion. Very lucky to have that opportunity. So thank you.
One little remark I would like to add is that I'm a date freak. I don't like to see anything that passes by my eye. I don't know when it was originated. And this is remarkable because every page will tell me when this was originated. So I'm impressed with that.
Good.
What's our distribution plan for getting this annual report out to county legislators, county executives, blah, blah, blah?
So update last year's request letter that, what's that?
I mail them out.
Yep. So we mailed the request letter
Every
out.
legislator gets it, okay, hard
Hard
copy.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
this one is just for the meeting, but it's actually like a
booklet.
booklet
Okay,
print from, professional printer, and then I get them, put Mark's letter in and put them in the mail.
perfect. Self-promotion.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
So if at some point, once these are printed officially, I can get a few
Yes,
extra copies for my planning board and people who don't necessarily get this passed to them.
we ordered 250. I'm sure there'll be a few extra.
Okay, good. I'll be in touch.
All right.
I'll
So
have 'em.
Mark, one comment is, and it's beautifully done. I love the graphics and the ease of readability. Whenever I go through the annual report, it's amazing how interested I become in the articles that, the things that are highlighted.
Mhm.
So just to make sure that we've always got an easy, if the reader wants more information on that specific topic, that it's easy for them to get to. So whether I went to our website, or I don't know if it's the barcode thing that to say, if somebody can just click on it, but some way to then let them delve deeper into that particular area.
One thing we can do with the PDF version that's gonna go on our website is link different areas
Yeah.
to a related article or
Yeah.
feature. We can definitely do that.
And maybe you wanna reference that in the cover letter, tie it all together.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Good work, everybody.
So any other business? Anybody have any issues we need to consider?
I'm still planning on having a meeting at the juvenile detention center.
That remains to be seen. What we learned when we had the rededication ceremony a couple weeks ago was that parking, when the facility is fully staffed, is at a very high premium at the facility. So having to manage the logistics of parking for 2 boards would be very challenging there.
Yep.
But I'll talk with the facility staff and see if we can figure something out.
How far away
rega-
is that hangar parking from there?
Pretty far. What we did during the construction project was have the staff at the facility park at the jail and then be shuttled over.
Yeah,
However, it's a huge bone of contention since they had to suffer for so many years in their union renegotiation contract. The union would have an issue with having to move their
Okay.
cars. But we did it for the rededication event. I'm sure we can do it again. Regardless of whether we do it, you're all invited to tour the facility. If you want to tour the facility, just reach out to me and we can set something up.
Mark, is there additional property there to expand a lot?
So the property is bounded on 2 sides by roads. And on the 3rd side by property of Albany County, including the Albany County Jail and the airport. So it's not a lot of room to expand. We basically maximize the buildable footprint of the parcel with the improvement and expansion project.
Maybe the county can help us.
They've been a great partner. If they want to give us, more land to expand, although it was the consensus between myself and the folks that run the facility that we never want to do it again.
Just to get an idea.
At least 30 years.
They're out the hook there.
Parking's a small.
so let me just ask this, is there anybody here that does want to take the tour of the facility, that maybe we could do it as a more of a group or a small group or something, so that everybody isn't just individually bombarding Mark with requests?
I do, I originally
would
missed the first one. I missed the first one, so.
So we have 3.
I will send around a doodle poll of folks with a couple dates in mind, and we can put together a couple small groups to do the tour.
That'd be great, yeah. Okay, so we'll hear more from Mark on that. So no other business. Next meeting we have is October 15th at 10 a.m. As far as we know, then it will be here again. Okay, so do we have an emotion to adjourn?
Motion, second.
All in favor?
Have a great summer, everybody.